How can personal adversity become a catalyst for change? Today, we continue our conversation with Brooke Forsythe, and we are exploring how her experiences have fueled her passion for mental health advocacy. Welcome back to the It's Your Story to Tell podcast. I'm your host, Megan, and still here with the raspy voice today. We are going to continue our conversation with Brooke, and we're going to get to hear a little bit about how her journey through those mental health challenges has led her to empower others that are facing similar struggles. Thanks, Brooke, for being here. It's wonderful to have you.
Yeah, thanks again, Megan. Definitely appreciate it.
Well, let's start out with what were some of the pivotal moments or strategies that aided in your recovery, and did they help you to build your resiliency along the way?
Yeah, great question. So what happened when my pivotal moment was in 2000, I want to say 19, I developed pneumonia, went into the hospital, and I knew the hospitalist and I was going to be admitted to my floor. And he went into my bed list and turned around and was like, Brooke, whoa. Because I was on 5 different medications for anxiety and depression. And he's like, you put on a pretty good acting class here. And I instantly was ashamed and I felt guilt. I felt like a fraud. And so I just felt lost. And that was probably one of the lowest moments I had as a nurse because I was treating people when I probably needed more help myself. And after that stint, about a year later, I came across a book called The Secret by Rhonda Burns. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I've heard of it, yeah.
I don't know where it got in my hands. I bought it, I can't remember, and I started reading that, and it was talking about mindset work and positivity. And I was working with my counselor at the time. I was about 3 years in with my counselor, and I started reading that book and I had this revelation and I said, I'm going to try this. And so I woke up that next morning and I felt like a different person. I don't know what happened to me overnight, but something happened and was like, you're going to start being positive. You're not going to care what other people think about you. You're not going to fit the norm anymore, Brooke. Like, you got this. And I'm not telling people to do this at home. Please do not stop your pills abruptly like I did. And I did do that because my heart was racing. I was on, ADHD medication. I was on just a rainbow. And I was just bound and determined to live life positively from then on. I became a totally different person overnight, and I went to work the next day and people were looking at me like I was crazy.
You became that glowing counselor.
I did. He finally was around me and, just making sure I was going along like she does in life, which is awesome. And that's a person that I would want to be like. And so I came to work and I was friends with the manager at that time, and she was a pretty negative person, and she thought I was on something, drugs or something, because I was just, I was smiling, I was having fun. I was just like, I'm going to give this a try. And people thought I was crazy. And I was just like, I don't care. I'm going to try this. And my goodness, Megan, it worked. And my days with my patients got better. My days with the peers got better. You go into a room with positivity and brightness for patients because, our hospitals look like mental institutions and they're look, like jails, and which I wish hopefully that'll change in the future too. But it's not fun sitting in a I almost said hotel room. They're worse than hotel rooms. Sorry, in a hospital room rather. And so I tried this approach and I got a lot closer to my patients. And they were more open with me about what was really going on. And that's when I found the Nurse Coach Collective. It was going through Instagram one day, and I was just like, what the heck is nurse coaching? So got into
the benefit of social media and our phones listening to us, because that, like every coach, that nurse that I talked to that found it, it's like, I found it on social media. That was the same thing with me. I had done functional medicine for nurses that had popped up because I'm really into that kind of thing. So it identified that I like that stuff. And then after that, I started seeing the nurse coaching thing. So, we got to give it the algorithms like their credit when it's due. Most of the time they're not good, but it is working in that realm.
Yeah, exactly. And so I applied for that, got in, and I said, wow, this is a way different way of nursing. And kudos to Heather and Peter for starting that program and changing a lot of lives for nurses and for the nurses that stay in healthcare, changing their approach to how they treat their patients and everything. And that we are people and we're here on this journey all together through love and life and just shining the brightest light on people, even in their darkest times, and being there. And I honestly, truly think that's what Florence Nightingale had intended for nursing. And we have totally gone the opposite way the corporations have. And so I see why bedside nurses are taking the leap into doing other things. And I get it. I get it. And I feel that my calling is to stay in the system and show nurses how they can overcome fears or burnout, moral injury. I call it betrayal because I think it's a betrayal on the system on bedside nurses. And so I'm here to show people how you can do it and stay in the system, plus be healthy outside of the system. And so that's where I went with my practice as a nurse coach. I developed Forsythe Wellness Coaching, and I do work with nurses, and I also do work with non-nurses and teach a lot of the points of what my counselor has taught me and communication techniques, relationships. I've been in a lot of those. So I think a lot of us have as nurses, and even relationships with patients or at home, and really honing in on how to show up as our best self and how to love ourselves so we can love others.
So true. 'Cause I thought I was like the most loving person because I would always say yes. But that does not mean you're a loving person.
Right.
That means you're a people pleaser. And I was looking for others to validate my worth, which does not make for connection and good relationships. Yes, like you, I've had multiple relationships, and it was not until I really went on a very deep journey back to my childhood, uncovering a lot of the beliefs and the narratives that created, and recognize I don't want to align with those things. Those aren't me. And kind of reprogramming my mind through mindset work and learning how to care for myself because I felt selfish. I think women, maybe in general, we're wives, mothers, caregivers, and there's a lot of, not dismissing that men have a lot of pressure, but in this aspect of kind of having to do so many different things, wear so many different hats, and how exhausting it can be when we don't have good boundaries. And I really do, I like how you highlighted betrayal injury. Hadn't really thought about it that way, but I absolutely could see how I got into healthcare to help people heal. And what I felt like I was doing was helping, just popping pills. Like I would have, I was in a cardiac ICU, and I would see the same patients. We called them our frequent flyers. They're always back in there. And we were not able to help them make the changes because in cardiac, a lot of it is lifestyle modifications that could improve their outcomes. And we don't have the time. One, there's not like a consistent way to follow up and connect. You give them that education, but most people are not doing well by themselves because they're lacking education, right? We're in the day of the internet. Most people understand what healthy food is, and calories in and calories out are, how we gain or lose weight. Most of the time, there's something emotional around that eating or a wounding or their way of coping. Same with alcohol, and I really started through my own process and then in nurse coaching to really recognize these outward symptoms are really so connected to the things, the woundings of our past and the way we've learned to cope with it. So that's kind of how I see we need to have better support for patients. But I'd love to hear what some of your thoughts are on what do we need in the healthcare system to be a better support. I know you're staying in healthcare and trying to make a difference with nurses, but what else do you see as potential opportunities?
Well, for one, lower nurse to patient ratios so we can have time with our patients and you mentioned that you took a functional medicine course and I've done that as well. And what our nutrition people in the hospital don't know crap. I'm some crap about nutrition. I'm sorry, but what we were taught in school is not.
Well, our whole food pyramid,
Yeah, let's just say it's
like,
just,
not
it's
it,
crazy.
it benefits the pharmaceutical companies. Let's just put it that way.
Right. And so,
Inflammation and obesity and all of that, diabetes.
yeah, and honestly, doctors. I have a doctor that's going through a functional medicine course, and she stops at the desk to talk to me, and she's just like, "Holy cow, Brooke! Some of these labs I
What
didn't
have I
even."
been doing?
Yeah, and so she feels bad, and I feel like that's going to be kind of an awakening moment. I feel like more of this functional medicine stuff is going to be hovering over them, and they're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, I've been doing it wrong this whole time." They're going to feel guilty. They're going to feel shame, and that's Megan. That's where we come in to support doctors down
You
to.
know better, you do better. Like, that's what people have to realize. Like, you can't get down on yourself and criticize yourself for something that you just weren't educated on.
Yeah, not aware of, and so us that have waken up early, we're here to support the whole system. And so, what does a better healthcare system look like? As I said, lower to nurse patient ratio, doctors being a little bit more aware of what a good food pyramid is. That's gonna have to be redone. And just honestly, administration in the hospitals of what nurses at bedside do and that respect, that boundary, and also nurses at bedside creating boundaries of saying, hey, this isn't right and I'm going to speak up, and they will hopefully listen. And I did that about a couple weeks ago. I also have a blog and I wrote a blog about administration, and Megan, guess what I got a text message from an
A call.
administrator.
Yes. Let's talk about what you're writing about.
Yeah, and she was just not appalled. She did not think that I had the guts to write about this. And this is what I wrote about in my book. And I put it all out there. I am very vulnerable about the system that we are working in. I am very vulnerable of what anxiety and depression looks like, which is ultimately being sad about past events. And I talk about patient stories and how they affected me in a negative, sometimes in a negative way, but also trying to find the positivity in every patient experience that I have, because we are people that we meet, we're supposed to be taught something, right? And so we're always supposed to be here learning on what we call planet Earth. And so we take these as teaching moments. And so I am trying so hard to just show up at the hospital with positivity and creating a great day for nurses to show them that they can do it and it's possible, and to get them away from the social media, because I honestly, Megan, I don't think I've seen a positive nursing meme on social media or anything like that. Like, if what would happen if we turned that around? If it was all positive, would nurses be more apt to do their job better?
Yeah,
That's a
that's a
deep
good point.
question.
Yeah, no. I mean, I believe the power of our words, the things that we say create our reality. And so if we don't speak positive words, if we don't speak into existence what we want it to be, then I don't believe that we will get it. And I think that's such a good point. I hadn't really thought about it, but when I think to the memes and the things, you know, I see my environment, I'm around a lot of nurse coaches like you, and they're super positive and they're all trying to make a difference. But I don't see that in the general public. And I have one Facebook nursing page that comes to mind as you say that, where
Hmm.
all it is these memes about negativity. So what are we speaking out into the system?
Right. And so I mean, and people send, my nurse colleagues, they send me these negative memes, and I honestly, I can't go. They're funny. I get that they're funny,
Right.
but man, if we were to turn that around, would nurses turn their mindset around a little bit? That would be quite
Mm,
a study to do.
that would be So interesting.
Very interesting. And that's what I was thinking about just recently, and I was going to write about it, was just the social media aspect and our younger generation, getting them. I just wish social media would go away sometimes, but I see the positives in it, but I also am seeing more negative than I am positive. And
Absolutely.
so maybe start our own meme company. I don't know, of just positive memes of patient stories and showing what they taught us and made us a better person. Those are the stories that I would like to see on social media.
Well, and that's the heart of nurses and healers who want to make a difference, right? When they feel like they're making a difference. And it's not easy, right? The hospital is not set up to allow you to feel that way. But you're right, like, congratulations for being so vulnerable. I remember time early in my nursing career where I was just like, I am not gonna continue with some of the things that are happening. Took a doctor to the ethics board, wrote it all up, spoke to all the doctors in front of that doctor, and they agreed with me and they made changes. Now, that was so scary, but if we don't have those moments of standing up and taking a risk, what if they reject me? What if I lose my job? What if, right? You could what if it to death. And then in my hospital, there was, a lot of focus on quality, which I want quality too. But again, we're not at the root cause of why quality is not happening. And so I went to my nurse manager and I said, I think we have a morale problem, not a quality problem. And I said, would you let me focus not on what we're doing wrong and how we're not doing it? Like, you can still track that, but let's put up a board in our break room that highlights everybody's birthdays. Let's do a potluck. Let's get to know each other. Let's do some things outside of the hospital. We created a fishbowl that we had, you got caught, little things, and we would put them in about each other. And guess what? What happened to quality? It went up because people weren't afraid to ask for help. They knew the other person, that there was more of a teamwork in it. And so sometimes, just like in coaching, if we're just looking at the problem and saying, well, you just need to lose weight, that's not going to move the needle forward. If they do lose weight for a period of time, they don't keep it off, right? It's like they did it, they hit their goal, they go back to what they were doing. There wasn't a real change in their mindset, in their habits, and all of those things. And it's the same in the hospital system. Like, we have to change the way we're doing it and get to root causes, which I do believe is more of the connection and the interpersonal relationship side of things, because people are afraid, like, if I ask for help and they think I can't do it, like, what's that gonna, or talking about mental health, there's so much stigma, like you experienced when that doctor, maybe he was trying to, I don't know, be compassionate or give you a compliment that you were so, like, able to show up, but it created shame for you. And that is a lot of people's experience. When people look at it, they wouldn't have thought anything if you were on, like, blood pressure, diabetes meds, something for your neuropathy. Like, they would just be like, oh, yep, you've got these conditions. But it's not the same. And so that's one of the reasons why this podcast is like, let's talk about the heart, but we are not going to leave it there, because there is hope if you can, find a different way forward, uncover the root of what's got you stuck, because you were gifted a dream of a life that would be fulfilling for you. So how do we help you get there? So tell me a little bit about your coaching practice and the kind of clients that you work with.
Yeah. So as you were talking about, mindset work, and that is, I feel, the most important thing about coaching is people's mindset is they're very negative. And I think the hurdles that nurse coaches go through, it's hard starting a practice. I'm going to be honest. It's hard to grab clients because I don't think they're very aware of what we do, and putting yourself out there and doing free sessions and really honing in on mindset has been what I do with my clients, and turning the negative thoughts into the positive. And a lot of it that I unravel with my clients is shame based, and what do people think of me? And this generation that is in their 20s and 30s is so worried about what other people think. And so I really work with my clients on setting those boundaries, not with other people, but with themselves, and giving themselves grace. Saying if they say one negative thing, I'm like, okay, then you got to back it up with two positive things about yourself. If you see yourself, or during the day on a shift, if you are going through negative land, everything's going wrong, you're going to take a 2-minute break and you're going to sing, or you're going to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, I can do this. And, I am enough. And I think with my clients, they have really blossomed into the communication factor on how they communicate with other people, validation of feelings. I work with a lot of women they're very independent. And so that's a huge challenge with relationships as independent women, because we just want to do everything and get it all done and not have, our other helping us. And so honestly, the nurse coaching aspect is really getting to the root cause of people and changing that mindset. Why I call my practice mindset coaching, because it helps not only the mental, but also the physical aspects of your body as well.
I love that. So if I will link all of your stuff, but where can people find you?
So Yep, they can go to my website. It's www.forsythewellnesscoaching.com and email me there, and I will be more than happy to work with them on whatever they want, or if we're not a great fit. And that's what the good thing about our nurse coaching community, Megan, is that we know different coaches, and if we're not the right fit for each other, heck, we have that community to be like, oh, this girl, you're going to work well with this girl. And I think we have that respect for each other to do that. And that's what's awesome about our community, that it's growing, and we have a lot of different coaches working on different niches. I hope I said that right. And so I'm very excited to meet new coaches and what they work on. And so if I'm not getting somewhere with a client, I will drive them to somewhere else, because I want them to succeed in life. And that is my number one thing that I want for them, is to have a positive life and to love themselves in order to have this great life, which is what they deserve.
Yeah. I love that you highlighted that, we're not every client are you the right coach for. And that's why in my practice, It's Your Story to Tell, I have many coaches within the practice, and we share our stories, because the journeys that we have been on are our superpower, and how we navigated that, whether it's navigating the healthcare system or the mindset, because those mindsets are very similar oftentimes when you have a similar symptom. And so I love that you highlighted that, because it is really important that we find you the right person to work with. And I'm just excited for the growth of the nurse coaches, and hopefully to be its own. We have the certification board exam now and all of that for nurse coaches, but that it's really a recognized specialty, and that we're all moving forward together in a way to impact and make a difference. So thank you so much for sharing your story with me today, and letting our audience hear about how having a mindset shift can shift everything.
Absolutely. Thanks you again for having me, Megan. I truly do appreciate it.
So welcome. Don't forget to subscribe to the It's Your Story to Tell podcast for more inspiring conversations. And if today's episode resonated with you, we'd love for you to leave us a review, or maybe there's somebody that you know is struggling right now that could benefit from hearing this story. We'd love it if you would share. Until next time, remember, your story, it matters.